Hello, I'm AJ Janavel, and this is Longer Looks. On today's episode, we're digging into a topic that we have already discussed this week. We're going through the weekend and there's a big question in the city of Seattle. What will this Saturday look like with the expectations of protests throughout not just our area, not the city, not just the state, but the entire country? This Saturday is the No King's Day protests, hundreds of events across the entire nation, an anti-Trump protest coinciding with President Donald Trump's birthday. In the city of Seattle, they expect to have at least two different demonstrations, one in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of the city, as well as the University of Washington, which could create issues when you consider the fact that the University of Washington is also having its graduation on the same day. That's thousands of families who will be on campus at the same time that people will be protesting. On top of the University of Washington's graduation, there's also a Mariners game, Saturday, same day. There's a big question going into this weekend is what is it going to look like? Now, we talked earlier this week about the protests that we have already seen in the city. We had protests Wednesday night that led to the arrest of at least 8 people here in the city of Seattle. We talked about the impacts that had on the community. I was outside of the federal building reporting on the damage that was done to that building, defaced with graffiti and anti-Trump messages, anti-ICE, immigration custom enforcement messages, as well as anti-government in general. We saw some of the dramatic video of the clash between protesters and police. And so now we're going into this weekend, and what we had today was some of the biggest leaders of the state of Washington, elected officials, including the governor, King County executive, the mayor of Seattle, the mayor of Tacoma, as well as state representatives. Speaking directly to the community, they had a pretty uniform message, even though there were so many different voices. And that message is one of support of the protesters as long as it remains peaceful. I was at a press conference. What I want to show you right now is the Governor of Washington, Bob Ferguson, speaking directly to the community here for what he hopes to see this Saturday. Let's take a listen.
I support, to put it mildly, the right of people to have their voices heard. I have, like I suspect the people behind me, attended many protests myself. In times like this, it is not just a right that people have to express their opinions about their government. In my view, it's their duty. It's that important. Speaking out against a chaotic administration that repeatedly violates the law is critical to our democracy. But we, of course, must do that peacefully and lawfully. Here's the way I look at it. Don't give Donald Trump an excuse to try to federalize the National Guard here in Washington State like he did in California.
And so you hear Governor Ferguson referencing President Trump, specifically with some of the things that we have been seeing this week in Los Angeles with the controversies there, the protests that have been happening there, the anti-immigration and custom enforcement ICE protests, and the federal involvement. So you hear Bob Ferguson, the governor, talking about that as a concern. It's something that they focused on a lot during this press conference. And there are some reasons that is noteworthy to bring up. Seattle has been in the sights of President Donald Trump over the last few weeks. We had a protest at the University of Washington campus in early May with protesters, according to campus officials, causing more than $1 million worth of damage to the campus. A few weeks later, there was clashes between protesters and police when there was a conservative Christian group in town that also got the attention of the federal government. So there have been a few instances, just really within the last few weeks, where Seattle specifically has been focused on, a target for the federal government, Trump's administration. And so you hear the governor referencing what we've been seeing in Los Angeles over the last few days, saying essentially, if you want to make sure that the federal government stays out of what's going on here in Seattle, stay away from the violence, stay away from the destruction, make sure that your voice is heard, but it's done in a peaceful way. And as I mentioned before, there was a similar sentiment from every speaker who took the mic, but I want to emphasize one voice. This is the King County executive, and she kind of, the way I took it was basically giving a direction to protesters, urging protesters to follow that peaceful route. This is what she said towards the end of that press conference.
Our democracy and the laws outlined in the Constitution. So, to all of those planning to demonstrate this weekend, we encourage you to raise your voice against that which you do not agree with, and support those who are being wronged. But do not take the bait and confuse destruction for defense. We can defend our rights and our values, and we can defend our Constitution and our democracy without destruction and violence. Let's raise our voices loudly, let's keep our communities safe, and let's be a model for the nation as we protest peacefully and resist this federal overreach.
So again, you hear that similar sentiment. Here's the thing. When it comes to protests, you're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of people all together. And what we've seen in the past with reporting, what we've heard from officials in their statements, is it only takes a few for issues to start. The mayor of Seattle putting out a statement this week in regards to other protests in the city, saying the majority of people remain peaceful and they start off peacefully. The issue is it could just be a handful, 1, 2, 3, just a couple dozen people that can turn what is a peaceful protest, a peaceful rally, into something that devolves into a situation that becomes more violent. Those videos that you see that we have had played out of the violence, the clashing, the fireworks going off, the people in handcuffs, that could only just be a small amount. And it's hard to get a large group to remain peaceful. And I bring this up because even at this press conference, something that's usually contained to officials, elected officials, members of the media, newspapers, television stations, if you notice, this press conference was outside. Other people were able to walk up to it. As I mentioned, something that's usually pretty much able to be contained into a room that you can control the atmosphere. They took the opportunity at this press conference today to ask questions from the community. And again, I'm being a little bit redundant. Usually that community is members of the media. It's reporters, it's journalists. Because this was an open conference, it gave anyone the opportunity to speak up. And there were several different groups there who would not normally be probably at a press conference that is media invite only. And at this press conference, where elected officials are asking for protesters to remain peaceful, two groups at this conference started going back and forth bickering. This is during the opportunity for questions. This is what happened at the end of this press conference where they were asking for things to remain peaceful going into this weekend.
I was assaulted in the streets of Seattle by innocently standing by and watching the peaceful protest. We're being surrounded right now by the black bloc mask-wearing goggles. You can't even identify my perpetrator. You're my leader. Tell these people to stand down and stop assaulting me and taunting my civic servant hero, Tim Emerson. Right now, at this park we've cleaned. These are violent Antifa land people. Tell them to be peaceful. It's the black bloc violent Antifa people who we're talking about. They assaulted me. The detective said
You're asking us to play by the rules?
you just said we will not be peaceful. She just said it.
We're happy to chat with you after
I was
the
assaulted.
I hear that, so we're happy to
I have a
chat with you about
case
that.
number.
So this is how the rest of that press conference went. They ended the question opportunity pretty soon thereafter. And so the question that we're all looking at right now is going into the weekend is, what will Saturday look like? What can we expect from these protests? What can we expect from the extra events? The expectation of a lot more people in the city of Seattle because of those events that I mentioned earlier, the graduation, the ball games. There's a lot of other things going on. So it's something that we here at Fox 13 Seattle are taking a very, very close look at. We are going to have extra crews working all throughout Saturday. We're going to be on top of this with continuous coverage. We have the Fox local app where we will be updating throughout the day, not just the normal TV broadcasts. As always, we have some of the best journalists and reporters in the city who will be covering what we see out of this weekend's events. Here's the last thing I'll mention, and this has been said throughout the week. If you do not have to come to the city of Seattle this week, it might be the best, this weekend. It might be the best decision to avoid the city. There is just a lot that will be going on. Officials have said if you do have to come into the city, and as I mentioned, there's a lot of reasons to come into the city, just be aware. You could see road closures due to marches, due to protests. You could see other disruptions that are going on. The mayor's office has been in close contact with the police department, he says, in preparing and staffing for what we could see on Saturday. So I will end this episode of Longer Looks saying just that. Be aware if you're coming into the city, and make sure to stay tuned to us as we will be having the most up-to-date information throughout Saturday. For Longer Looks, I'm AJ Janavel. Thank you so much for watching.